Welcome, welcome to yet another beautiful day, beautiful show. This is Humanist TV Africa, where everything begins and ends. We're your TV that gives you the best information, the best education, and the best entertainment. When it comes to education, when it comes to information, we are the people to choose. We are the channel to choose. This is Humanist TV Africa, and we want to welcome you all to yet a beautiful show today. My name is Katum Mukasa, and in the studio is Dennis Bongole, who is based in Uganda and is going to be helping us to run this show. Welcome once again, and see you in this very show. Of course, I'm going to be joined by colleagues. Now, subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Humanist TV Africa. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Humanist TV Africa, and please hit that note where you are going to be able to see notifications, to see all the videos, to go back into our archives and see everything that we have covered. Please simply subscribe to Humanist TV Africa and be able to get all our free to watch videos, all our episodes on a number of issues. Remember, Humanist TV Africa is here to stay. We are a team of humanists spread all over the world. But we want to promote secularism, we want to promote critical thinking, we want to combat superstition, we want to combat dogma, and we want to spread good news to the people of the world. Now, our team is currently based in the UK, is currently based in Africa, in different countries of Africa. We are based in South Africa. Of course, we are in Uganda, we're in Kenya, we're in Zimbabwe, we're in Zambia. We are everywhere you want us to be. We are going to be there now. This is TV Africa. This is Humanist TV Africa, and welcome to yet a beautiful program today. Today, we're going to be discussing the conflict between Israel and Palestine and the rise of anti-Semitism. The rise of anti-Semitism. Now, I'll explain briefly what is anti-Semitism or anti-Semitism. Now, who are Semitic people? Semitic people, one may say it's a race, but I would say it's an ethnic group. It's a group of people where we put the Jews. Those are Semitic people. We have, of course, Caucasians. Of course, we have the Africans, black people. We have what was invented to be the Nordic people. And later on, we also had what was called the white race coming in there. And then what was finally called the Aryan race. The Aryan race. Now, I want to give you the history of how do we come to see the first terminology describing a particular people as Semitic, and then how do we see the coming of the term anti-Semitism or anti-Semitism? How did it come about? Now, I've been giving you the history of Israel. And in my last episode, if you go and watch, you're going to see that I've told you the history, right, using their own book, they call the Bible, or they call the Torah. And of course, I've been using the historic formation of Israel. I've traced Israel from the theocracy. Remember, Israel began as a theocracy. They never had kings. Their first king was Saul. They never had kings. They used to have a council of elders leading on behalf of God, because their God, not my God, their God used to speak to them directly and give them what to do. Remember the 10 commandments? So the Jews, the Israelites, always were a theocracy. A theocracy means that they are governing on the laws, on the principles of God. Remember, I told you that at one point, the 12 children who became the 12 tribes split into two, and then Reuben and Benjamin formed Judah, which was in the south, and the other 10 children formed Israel, which was in the north. And I told you the invasions that came in and how the Israelites in the north were completely wiped out and spread all over the world. How they end up in Africa, in North Africa, how they end up in the rest of Europe and covered the entire world. Jews are one people that have been all over the world. In every corner of the world you go, you find a Jew, because historically they have gone all over the world. They have been in the foundation of America. They have been in the foundation of United Kingdom. They have been everywhere. Every strong empire you know today, every strong country you know today has a Jew as a contributing factor in their greatness. They were so much alive in the greatness of America, in the war for independence. They were so much alive in World War. The Jews have been everywhere, courtesy of AD 130, when Emperor Adrian, the Roman Empire, completely disseminates them and finishes them. Remember that Antioch, the Greek, the Macedonian emperor, had already finished them off several years before the Romans took over. Then when the Romans took over, they had regrouped after hundreds of years, and then the Romans finished them completely off. They ran away, and Judea became a slavery kind of kingdom. Jerusalem is under Roman Empire, and everything goes bizarre. There is no Judaism completely. When Islam comes in later on, they are also again wiped out. So Israel is one kingdom or a people that have been living in so much difficulty. Every time they have been regrouping, another emperor, another ruler used to come and wipe them off. Like Antioch, who was also known as an antichrist, who forced them to eat pork, who forced them to not circumcise, who forced them to worship foreign gods, ruled them for over 60 years. So the Israelites or the Jews have been always under captivity for so many years. So they were forced to move out of their own homeland for so many years. Now, in 1860, we see now the coming of the term anti-Semitism or anti-Semitism. How did it come? In that year, 1860, there were two scholars. I'll call them scholars. I don't call them professors. There are two scholars who used to write journals on critical thinking. But all these two scholars were well known for their well-grounded research on Judaism. One of these scholars was Schneider. One of them was called Sten Schneider. Sten Schneider was a Jew who had been schooled in Judaism and had written theses on Judaism. Now, Schneider wrote things to do with promoting Judaism and Jews as a special people. Remember, he was a Jew himself. He had been schooled by his father, and his schooling, all over he went, he had specialized in Judaism and religiosity. Now, Schneider wrote in praise of the Jews as a special people of God, as a people of ingenuity. Now, his counterpart in the rebuttal of what Schneider has written, his counterpart, a French guy called Ernest Renan, wrote back in an essay and said the Jews were inferior, that the French were better. In fact, he said that there was a special race that was far better than the Jews. The Jews were Semitic, were inferior. The Caucasians were better than the Jews. So you see, Ernest wrote back to criticize what Schneider Stein had written. Schneider is a Jew, Ernest is a French guy, and Schneider was based in Australia in a place called Bavaria. Now, when Ernest wrote back criticizing Schneider's argument that the Jews were better, and Ernest wrote back and said, no, actually we're inferior, Caucasians are better. Now, Stein Schneider wrote back and said, you have introduced anti-Semitism. You are hating on the Jews. Now, it was Stein Schneider, 1860, who first wrote the term anti-Semitism. Therefore, he introduced the topic, the theme of hating on the Jews. It was Stein Schneider, 1860, who introduced the term anti-Semitism. He was writing in response to his literary colleague, Ernest Renan, who had said that actually the Jews were inferior to the Caucasians. Remember, the Jews are not Caucasians. The Jews are Arabs. The Jews are Semitic. And Schneider wrote in defense of the Jews, saying they are the better people. Now, in response, Ernest Renan said, no, actually, we're inferior. We are better. We, the Caucasians, are better. Now, in response, Schneider said, no, you are hating on the Jews, and introduced the term anti-Semitism. Now, anti-Semitism simply means hating on the Jews, the hatred people have against the Jews. Now, in this conflict, we are seeing the hate against the Jews continue. Remember, I've told you about Antioch. I've told you about people like Hamlabi, people like Nebuchadnezzar, if you look at their Bible, who always hated on the Jews and wanted to finish them off the earth. I've talked about Adrian of Rome, Emperor Adrian. I've talked about Pompey of Rome. All these guys always wanted to finish off the Jews, including Julius at one time. All of them have hated on the Jews. Why? Because the Jews always were considered to be the chosen ones. The Jews always refused to adopt other people's cultures. You could take a Jew as a slave, but a Jew will remain a Jew. The Jews were always proud of their culture. They always refused to adopt to other people's cultures. Until when Antioch forced them to eat pork, forced them to stop circumcising, forced them to worship their demigods, until the Greeks forced them to eat pork, until the Babylonians forced them to eat pork, until the Muslims forced them to become Muslims. The Jews always refused. The Jews always refused and defended their own tribe. They defended their own culture, their own status, their own Judaism. You could take a Jew to slavery, a Jew would remain a Jew. Now, because of their principles, because of their love of their own God, because of their love of their own land, people always hated on the Jews. Now, this is where the problem is. This is where the problem is. Now, anti-Semitism officially starts. We have been seeing it all over the years. We have been seeing anti-Semitism for thousands of years, because almost everyone has hated on the Jews. Why? Because the Jews remained true to their own God. Because the Jews remained true to their own principles. The Jews failed to accept assimilation. The Jews failed to accept Islam. Until when Muhammad and his goons basically introduced the tax code Aziza, introduced Beirut, introduced a uniform which was yellow, and made Jews slaves. But Jews always refused to accept Islam. Jews always refused to accept Christianity. They said, for us, we are Judaists. They believe in Judaism. Jews rejected Jesus Christ. So because of that, always people have hated on the Jews. The Christians, Crusades, hated on the Jews. The Romans hated the Jews. The Babylonians, the Persians, the Assyrians, the Philistines always hated on the Jews. Everyone has always hated on the Jews. Now, because of that, 1860, Schneider coins the term anti-Semitism. Now, today, in this kind of confusion, we see this kind of confusion coming back. Remember, I told you how Antioch, the Greek ruler, forced them to eat pork. Remember, I told you, I think I haven't told you this, how they fought back through the what was called the Maccabean Revolution. The Jews fought back through what they called the Maccabean Revolution, 1640. No, 164. 164 BC, before Christ, there was what they called the Maccabean Revolution, where the Jews gathered together and fought back against the Greek and fought back against Macedonia, 164 BC, and again took over their territory. After bloodshed of about 30 years of fighting, the Jews regrouped and fought back. And again, the Romans came back at 67 BC, 67 BC before Christ. Romans are taking over. And Romans, by that time, were a republic. They are taking over the Jews. And again, they enslaved them. We remember, of course, Hammurabi, 1792, enslaving the Jews, the Babylonian dynasty. Of course, we remember the Egyptians, Amin Pasha, 1070 BCE, also enslaving the Jews. We remember the Carthaginians Empire of 144 BCE, enslaving the Jews. We remember the Ashkenazian Empire, which was full of people from Iraq and Turkey, 560 BC, still enslaving the Israelites and the Jews. And of course, we remember the Kushites from Africa. The Kushite Empire from Africa took over that land you call Middle East, 656 BCE, also enslaved Israelites. And I'm talking about enslaving them for hundreds of years, 60 years, 70 years, until another empire comes in, fights back, and Jews always were enslaved, always remained underdogs. But one thing remained true to themselves: Jews never left Judaism. Jews never abandoned their God. Jews never abandoned the idea that they had a holy land. They had a holy land. They had Jerusalem. They had Temple Mount, which up to now, they still say, this is our own place. They have what we call a Wailing Wall, which remained after the destruction of Jerusalem. Now, because of that, all these wars that happened, thousands of years, Jews are forced to go to Europe. They become European Jews. They stay in Europe for thousands of years. At least 1,000 plus years, Jews were in Europe, all over Europe, German, everywhere. And remember, of course, what happened to them in World War, where Hitler kills 6 million people. Why? We go back to the story of anti-Semitism, the topic of today. Why does Hitler kill Jews? One, he says they had betrayed him in World War by giving away the secrets of Germany, giving them to who? To the Americans and to the Britons and their allies. Therefore, Germany was defeated thanks to the Jews. So Germany hated the Jews. And remember, there were so many Jews in Germany. I've told you how they moved all over Europe. And what does Hitler do? Hitler remembers what Lenin had said. Ernest Renan had said that there is an Aryan race. Aryan race. There is a superior race. Remember, if you look at India, if you can trace the etymology of Aryan, it begins with Indians, where there were light-skinned Indians and dark-skinned Indians. Now, the light-skinned Indians said they were the Aryan. They were the special ones. They were above the black-skinned Indians. Therefore, the light-skinned Indians thought of themselves as superior. Now, as the years went by, the same ideology was adopted by Caucasians. They call themselves white. And I repeat, they are not white, whether they are orange or whatever, but they are not white. People have different color shades, but there's no white color. But the Aryans, who were Caucasians, the supremacists, call themselves the Aryan race over the other races. They said that the Semitic people were the second-class citizens, and the Africans, the Hamites, the Africans, the black guys, were the third race. So there were 3 races. The Aryan race, which was Caucasian, white, and pure, and therefore superior. The second race was the Semitic race, the Arabs and the Jews. That was the second race. And now the inferior race was the black people's race. There were 3 races. Now, when Hitler takes over power, he says, we are the Aryan race, we are the special race. And there is this inferior race called Semitic people who betrayed us, and they are represented by the Jews. What does Hitler do? He gets 6 million innocent Jews and kills them and burns them to death. Now, you see, Aryan race, superiority of the so-called white race had gone berserk, because Hitler was saying we must purify our land. Our land has subhumans. Our land has inferior people who are the Jews, because these are Semitic people, these are second-class citizens. Africans, black people, third-class citizens. Now, it happens, the Holocaust happens, and then 6 million innocent Jews are killed. Now, that was anti-Semitism at its climax. Now, fast forward, the Jews are taken back to their country, or not country, to their land of their ancestors. 1948, by act of the UN, they are forcibly taken back. Arabs gang to fight them, and they fail. They gang to fight them, and they fail. In the final battle, 1973, Arabs are defeated. Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Turkey, Lebanon, all those countries are attacking Egypt, and they are attacking Israel, and Israel, without going to their countries, stays in Israel and bombs them, bombs all their aircrafts, and incapacitated 7 countries that surround Israel. Now, Israel wins the war. It takes on the Golan Heights, the Sinai place, and it captures more land inside Palestine. Now, from 1973, Israel has been at the top in that area, and our map will show later on. This is going to show you. We are going to see that Israel has been occupying more space, and dominating the entire Palestine, to the extent that Palestine is remained with a smaller piece of land, 365 square kilometers for Gaza alone, and West Bank even much smaller. Now, there's a problem here, that because of what Israel has gone through, they are not willing to budge. Now, and because of the history and the unfairness meted on the people of Palestine, many countries today, many people today are silently supporting the Palestinians. Remember, there's a difference between Palestinians and Hamas. Hamas is the government of Gaza. Hamas is a political wing. Hamas is a military wing. Hamas is regarded as a terrorist group. But Hamas does not represent the people of Palestine. Just like Israel, IDF does not represent the people of Israel. IDF, the politicians are doing whatever they want on their own. The people are saying, don't fight, we want peace. The politicians are saying, we want to kill everyone. Now, you have 2 opposing sides of politicians, all with their egos fighting each other. Where is the anti-Semitism coming in? All over the world as I speak today, there are thousands of people on the streets in the US. There are thousands of people on the streets in Morocco, in Egypt, in Syria, in Turkey, in Jordan. All these people are supporting one people. They are supporting Palestinians. Now, this is where we begin to see the rise of anti-Semitism, the hate against the Jews. As we speak today, in the UK, schools where Jews are known to go are being guarded, because there's a fear that Jews are going to be attacked. Businesses that are owned by Jews are being attacked. Therefore, they must be specially protected. The same is happening in the US, where the Jews now no longer put on their kappa, their capes. They no longer wear as Jews because they fear to be identified. And remember, these are innocent people. A Jew in America, a Jew in the UK has done nothing wrong. Even a Jew in Israel has done nothing wrong. It's the soldiers, it's the IDF, it's the politician, it's the madman Benjamin Netanyahu. He who is fighting, bad man Netanyahu, who is fighting, basically. And his ego, he has been failing for the last 16 years. He's a failure, he's corrupt, he was being indicted, he was changing the constitution. Therefore, he had a chance to prove himself. He's fighting back. It's Netanyahu who is the problem. It's the politician who are the problem, not the people of Israel. So we must identify who is the problem here. The problem here are the politicians. The problem here are the Hamas people, not the Palestinians, not the innocent women and children, but the politicians behind the guns. Now, the rise of anti-Semitism starts because people are hating on the Jews as it were in 1860, as it were in 1070 BCE, as it were in 67 BC when the Romans were taking over Jerusalem, as it were when the Ottoman Empire were taking over Jerusalem, as it were when the Assyrians were taking over Jerusalem, as it were when the Babylonians were taking over Jerusalem. Remember, I've told you, Jerusalem, Israel, has been conquered thousands and thousands of times. Those guys have suffered. But right now, the innocent Jews are still being hated on, yet it's the politicians basically committing these atrocities. It is the IDF, it is Netanyahu and his clique of confused fellows causing trouble. It's the Hamas that has failed to sit down and say, we are brothers, we are cousins, let us talk peace. Now, Dennis, I want to invite you to allow our panelists to come to the studio, and then we also play some of the images which I will explain later. Then my colleagues will also give in their own submissions on the rise of hate on the Jews. Then let us have the photos, and of course let us have our panelists coming in the studio. You can see, we love you. People are supporting Palestine. Why? Because they hate to see dead bodies of innocent children dying. We are saying, stop killing children. Look at that protest in Rabat. Look at that protest. Thousands of people go in the streets in Morocco to say, enough is enough. Israel must stop attacking Palestine. Look at that protest in Indonesia. Look at that protest. Thousands and thousands of people are shouting to the government of Israel to stop attacking innocent Palestinians. Now, that's the rise of anti-Semitism now. Look at that photo. It is the reverse. The other time it was David versus Goliath. This time it is Goliath who is at a disadvantage, and David is now the upper guy. Now, there is a reverse of roles. David is much more stronger, and Goliath is much more weaker. This is what people are saying, stop killing innocent Palestinians. All of us are saying, stop killing innocent Palestinians. Look at that map. Look at that map. When you look at it, trust me, there was no Israel on the map in 1947. There was no Israel. Israel was simply imposed by the UN, courtesy of Americans and the British government. All of us know that history, because it was a territory owned by Britain. That is the memory of 1947. That's how the Jews were brought from England. They were brought from America to go back to Israel. They were brought from all over the world. They came on boats, 1947. They were not there, though a few of them had remained, but many of them were all over the world. Look at that map. The first map, the green, is where the Palestinians covered. There were just a few thousands of Jews in Palestine who were peaceful people. Jews were completely peaceful people. Now, when they came, 1948, they took that part. There was a war. You can see the next year, 1949, there was another war. They took bigger chunks of land. Up to 1973, they have been taking land. Now, look at the present Israel today. They have covered the entire land. The Israelis have covered the entire Palestine. Now, Palestinians have been forced to go to cover Gaza and Western Bank. They have been forced out. There are thousands and thousands of Palestinians in Syria as refugees. In fact, there are over 2 million Palestinians in Syria as refugees, and there are over 4 million Palestinians abroad as refugees. Then, next photo, please. That was the map I was trying to explain the journey of the kingdom of Israel. Where do they come from? I won't explain this, but of course, I'm going to zoom it for you. Dennis will zoom it for you. The timeline of the land of Israel. It has been a struggle from one kingdom to another, from one emperor to another, from one emperor to another. Everyone is attacking them. Look at the present day of map of Israel. They are bordered by Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. There is, of course, Lebanon and Cyprus. All those countries are against Israel. All those countries. And Israel in the Middle East only covers 0.04% of the land in the Middle East. Israel, I repeat, covers only 0.04% of the land in the Middle East. But these neighbors don't want them to stay. Now, there is a problem. Israelites were originally there. Jerusalem was theirs. They built Temple Mount. History shows that. But these guys don't want them to stay. Now, why don't we see a peaceful coexistence of guys who have a history that actually they were in that place? They were simply driven away by emperors, by Ottomans, by Romans, by Babylonians, by Assyrians. These guys drove them from their land. Now, they claim that Israel is occupying Arab land. But look, the green is the Arab world, and that tiny speck is Israel. It's true. Israel covers a very small, tiny speck. A very small, tiny speck. The problem is no one wants them to stay. That's why they are going to fight the last man. That's why you want to see peace. How do we get peace when these guys are under attack? Now, when you look at this letter, this is Albert Einstein, a Jew who was actually against Zionism. I'll explain that in one of our next topics. I'll explain to you famous Jews that have been against expansionism of Israel, famous Jews that are against Zionism, including the great thinker Albert Einstein and others. Please let us go ahead and see others. These are protests all over the world. These are protests all over the world. All these guys are saying no to Zionism. And therefore, this is the increasing anti-Semitism. But look at what the Israelis are doing. The soldiers are celebrating the genocide they did on the 18th day of October in Gaza. Remember, they were attacked on 17th, on the 7th day of October. Over 2,000 Israelis were killed. And then they retaliated and also celebrate. Now, there have been a very big war where people are putting down the flags of Israel and putting up the flags of Palestine. It shows people the rising anti-Semitism is on the increase. Now, these are quotations from Israel's officers, politicians. This is Ezra Yachin, says, wipe out their families, their mothers, and their children. These animals must not be allowed to live any longer. Look at this soldier, Ezra Yachin. Look at that statement. Now, Bezalel Smotrich says you are here by mistake because Ben Gurion didn't finish the job and throw you out in 1948. Ben Gurion was their prime minister. And this guy says, we want to finish you. You see, the attitude these guys have, the politicians of Israel are simply too harsh. They are genocidal. And that's why the problem comes in. Look at this guy, Naftali Bennett. He says, I already killed lots of Arabs in my life, and there is absolutely no problem with that. You can imagine. This is Naftali Bennett. These are Jews. These are Israelites. And look at that statement. He's proud of killing Arabs. This is wrong. This is Daniel Hagari. Daniel Hagari says that we are dropping hundreds of tons of bombs on Gaza. The focus is on destruction, not accuracy. You can't imagine. Now, these guys simply want to wipe out the people in Gaza off the face of the map. And that is dangerous. This is Benjamin Netanyahu. He says, we will turn Gaza into an island of ruins. You can't imagine. Total destruction. Island of ruins. This is Ariel Sharon, one of the prime minister of Israel, retired. I wanted to encourage my soldiers by raping Arabic girls as the Palestinian women is woman is a slave for Jews, and we do whatever we want to her. You can't imagine, including sanctioning the raping of women. This is dangerous. Benny Gantz says parts of Gaza were sent back to Stone Age. He was celebrating to send back Gaza to Stone Age. This is bad. Harriet Shakid says they should go, and as should the physical homes in which they raise the snakes. Otherwise, more little snakes will be raised there. You can imagine calling people snakes. Now, these are the reasons why anti-Semitism rises. Tari Gatliv says powerful rockets to be fired without borders, Gaza to be smashed and razed to the ground without mercy. You can't imagine a woman speaking such, that they are going to raise without mercy. This is Menachem Begin. The Palestinians are beasts walking on two legs. Beasts walking on two legs. Now they are calling Palestinians, whether you're a woman, a child, beasts. Yeah, Rapid says we need to get the Palestinians out of our lives. What we have to do is build a high wall and put them out of our sight. You can't imagine. These guys are not willing to coexist. This is why Hamas won't stop fighting. Gazan Ariane says animal humans will get treated accordingly. You wanted hell and you will get it. Now you can imagine that kind of talk is not a talk for peace. Ben Griver says the only thing that needs to enter Gaza are hundreds of tons of explosives from the Air Force, not an ounce of humanitarian aid. You can't imagine. There's no humanitarian aid going to Gaza. Remember, water was cut off, food was cut off, electricity was cut off. These guys are living in an open prison. Eli Yishai says the goal of the operation is to send Gaza back to Middle Ages. Only then will Israel be calm for 40 years. You can't imagine. You send them to Middle Ages and you think they'll be calm for 40 years and do what after 40 years? Fight back? Look at this map. List religious countries in the world. Those are the countries in red. And look at most peaceful countries in the world, the same countries. Why? Religion is the problem here. I was talking to a Scottish friend and she was saying, no, religion is not the problem. I repeat it to you if you are watching it. Religion is the problem here. These guys are fighting for the so-called holy places. And this one summarizes it very well. It's way beyond ironic that a place called the Holy Land is the location of the fiercest, most deeply felt hatred in the world. Exactly. George Carlin was right. You call that place the so-called Holy Land. A Holy Land where there's bloodshed year in, year out since 1947. Not even 1947, going back. British Jews demand freedom and equality for Palestine. You can imagine how good British Jews are. They want peace. Not every Jew want war. It's only the politician Jews that want war. You don't need to be a Muslim to stand up for Palestine. You just need to be humane. That's true. People are standing up for Palestine, not because they hate Jews. It's because they hate the injustices meted on the children in Palestine. You can see that Facebook post where people are showing that everyone, Facebook is murdering Palestine, Twitter, whatever, everyone is saying, don't talk in favor of Palestinians. Why? Look at this beautiful photo. A boy who is Palestinian and a girl who is Israeli. The Jews and Arabs are cousins, are brothers and sisters. They can live peacefully. Look at that photo. This is where the Jews stayed when they first entered in Israel, again in 1947 and 48. When they came, they were in tents. They were never bombed. They were allowed to stay and build their country. But right now, they are bombing everyone. Now look at this anti-Semitism now. They are putting the flag of the Israel down and stamping on it, and then they are raising the flag of Palestine. This is not right. This is not right. And they dress like Jews. Look at this photo, very beautiful one. A Palestinian and an Israeli child working hand in hand to rebuild the country. This is the way forward. This is the way forward. This photo summarizes the way forward. We need to spread love between Palestinians and Israelis. This is the way forward. Yet America, no time for ceasefire. Yet America is sponsoring this war with over 100 billion US dollars. America must stop sponsoring this war. Holy Bible, ironic. You press your hand on a book full of lies and swear to tell the truth. That is ironic. Jews, look what this one happened in Turkey. This one happened in Turkey. I picked it from the Israel TV. It happened in Turkey just 2 days ago, where a hotel in Turkey said Jews are not allowed. Now, this is dangerous. A hotel in Turkey says Jews are not allowed. Now, this is the rising era of anti-Semitism. Lastly, the opinion of 1,000, 10,000 men is of no value if none of them knows anything about the subject. That was Marcus Aurelius, a great leader. Now, if we can talk 1,000 of us, but if all of us are talking nonsense, we won't have a solution going forward. Now, this is so important that we discuss the way forward for Israel and we find a lasting solution. Remember, UN had talked about a two-state coexistence, a two-state pact. Israel could live independently, Palestine could live independently, and all of them would live in harmony. This has failed. How do we fix it going forward? I want to invite my panelists who have been waiting and watching this show to also come in the studio and share their views. Dennis, if anyone is in the waiting room, please may you usher them in and we hear their views. In the meantime, Brian Kabeka with the panel says that the Israelis also protesting against this genocide and calling for a truce that might make a difference. But if not, we assume they are pro-IDF. On the contrary, no. Israelis basically are saying stop the bombing. I've just told you, Israelis in the UK are saying stop the bombing. Israelis in America went up to Capitol Hill to say not in our name. Jews everywhere are peaceful people. I repeat, Jews everywhere are very peaceful people. They are saying not in our name. The problem are the politicians. And I've been repeating that. The problem for Israel is Benjamin Netanyahu and his crooked political class. It's not the Jews. Israelis are peaceful people. The Jews are peaceful people. Just like Palestinians, it's the Hamas. The problem is the military wing, the radicalized military wing. The problem are the Zionists, revised Zionism of Benjamin Netanyahu and his crooks. The problem are not the Jews. The Jews are saying, we want peace. The problem are the politicians. The problem is the US that is funding Netanyahu to continue killing people. And the US pretend that this is a war against terror. Which terror are you talking about? Which terror are you talking about, you man? When you are funding Netanyahu to go and kill pregnant women, children of one day, invalids, weak men, invalids, people in hospitals. Which type of terror are you talking about, Biden? When you give American taxpayers' money to Benjamin to go and get people killed. We all condemn what happened to the Israelites on the 7th day of October. We all condemn the attack of the Hamas people. But Hamas does not represent Palestinians. Hamas does not represent Palestinians. There are thousands of Palestinian youth in the jails in Jerusalem, in the jails in Israel. These youth must be freed. There are over 200 Jews that were captured by Hamas. These Jews must be freed by Hamas. Hamas must free the captives, but also Israel must free thousands of Palestinians rotting away in their damn jail. If you are going to have harmony between Israel and Palestine, we must accept to exchange prisoners. Israel must give up all innocent people rotting in their jails for over 16 years. without seeing the light of day. They must be released. This is what Hamas wants, and it's a valid demand. At the same time, Israel wants their captives. Over 100 innocent Jews and Israelites were taken by Hamas. They are underground. They are in the tunnels. I'm going to have a show where I'm going to show you how Hamas keeps people under the tunnels, and how big these tunnels are, and how hard they are to enter. Just like the Vietnamese, when we look at Vietnamese War, which took over 20 years, how did they defeat Americans? They had tunnels. It was very hard for Americans to enter into these tunnels. The same approach is being used by Hamas. Hamas has terrible tunnels underground where they can stay. They're like homes underground. You can bomb the entire Gaza. Hamas is going to stay underground. And when you go there, you'll die with them. Now, there must be peace. Now, we must all agitate for peace as humans and say, enough with your nonsense. IDF, enough with your nonsense. Hamas, enough with your nonsense. The people of Israel want peace. The people of Palestine want peace. They know that all of you are Semitic people, all of you are cousins. You are cut from the same Abraham, as your book says. You are cut from the same Noah. You are cut from the same Benjamin. You are cut from the same Jacob. All of you are children of the same father. So what we are preaching today is that we need to see peace in Palestine. We need to see peace in Israel. I have friends who stay in Israel, Ugandan friends I'm talking with who stay in Israel, and they're telling me that all their buildings have alarms, that the villages have alarms, and all their buildings have what they call bunkers, that if a missile came by accident and hit a building, they have safety places down the ground. Now, people living in Israel have been telling me that they actually live when almost each house that is built today has a bunker underground. Now, they have technology which intercepts missiles from Hamas, and they are telling me that each day Hamas sends missiles, but they are intercepted by the Iron Dome. They are intercepted by that technology which simply stops them from hitting Israel. So technology is saving Israel. But how long will it save Israel? If Hezbollah in Lebanon attacked Israel, if the Turkish government attacked Israel, if Lebanon, if Syria, if Iraq, if Iran combine forces to attack Israel, trust me, Israel will be overrun in a week. Israel can be overrun in a week if the Arabs of today, not yesterday, combined forces to fight a jihad. Now, who wants a massacre? Because you may say, oh, they have bunkers. But if they are attacked in their numbers, Israel doesn't have the army to withstand the onslaught of the Arab world. Now, we must, as intellectuals, as humans, come to our senses and say, enough of this madness must be seen to end. We must say no to Benjamin Netanyahu's terrorism. We must say no to Hamas's terrorism. We must say no to USA funding over $100 billion to Israel to buy guns, to make more weapons. We must say no to facilitating war and simply tell the US government to put that money into peace resolution, into rebuilding Gaza, into supporting infrastructure, into supporting the Israelis to live a better life without fear. Because even when you bomb these people, you will never finish them. Remember, Palestinians are in Syria. Over 2 million Palestinians in Syria. Palestinians in Germany. They're in the UK. They are all over the world, but they know their place. Now, whatever Benjamin Netanyahu is doing today to the Palestinians, their children and their grandchildren will never forget. Which means that the cycle of violence will simply come back. Now, if you are wise, Benjamin Netanyahu and your thugs in government, you better revise your approach, because it will not solve the problem now. You kill them today, their children will come back to haunt you 40 years from today. So violence will never solve any problem. Killing each other will never solve any problem. In fact, you kill them today and you postpone. I've told you, you have 2 million Palestinians as refugees in Syria. 2 million. You have over 1 million refugees in Lebanon who are Palestinians. You have thousands of refugees in Egypt. Thousands of refugees in Egypt who are Palestinians. You have thousands of refugees in Turkey who are Palestinians. What if these guys combined effort? They have joined Hezbollah, they have joined ISIS, they are going to fight back. This war cannot be ended with violence. This war cannot be ended with violence. There must be a time when you people must grow the hell up and sit on the table and discuss peace. Because war, guns, bombs have never solved any conflict. In fact, wars have always postponed a conflict. If you think that the World War II ended, you are telling yourself a lie. Look in your mirror and look your history properly. History does not teach lesser people. History simply punishes you more and more again. Now, if you want to move forward as a country, as a people, we must learn to forgive each other. We must learn to say, I'm sorry. We must learn to bury the hatchet. The approach of Netanyahu to say we are going to decimate, we are going to destroy, we are going to erase Palestinians off the face of the earth, you are telling a lie, because Palestinians are right here in Britain and they are watching whatever you're doing. Palestinians are right in the American and they are watching whatever you're doing to their own brothers and cousins and sisters. They will never forgive you. Palestinians are all over the world. And besides, they have sympathizers. No one is going to see a child dying from a bomb of IDF and say, go to kill them. No one is going to see a pregnant woman dying in a bomb and people are going to praise you. No one is going to praise you. So it means that the actions of Netanyahu and his team are increasingly making anti-Semitism impossible to erase. They hate against innocent people of Israel. They hate against innocent Jews all over the world. Jews are peaceful people, but the hate they get is because of their rude, backward, Stone Age politicians, and their leader is Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, as a humanist, I would say the problem are the politicians. The problem is Hamas. Hamas is radicalized. Hamas stands for death. Hamas has nothing to do with peace. Hamas wants blood. Hamas wants revenge. That's why Hamas, on the 7th day of October, went and killed innocent children, innocent women, innocent revelers. People were happily dancing their night away. Hamas killed over 400 people in one spot. Hamas would line up people, tie them, and mark them with 1, 2, 3, 4. My friend in Jerusalem was telling me 2 days ago that their TV showed images that were not shown elsewhere in the world. That Hamas got Israelites, put them in lines when they were alive, tied them, and put a marker on each of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 100, and shot them dead. Then got another batch, put them down, tied them, and marked them from 100 to another 200 and killed them until over 400 people from Israel were killed on the 7th day of October. That was murder. That was a massacre. That was a massacre. No one would tolerate that. Hamas did a terrorist act by killing innocent Jews. People were in a party dancing a night away and abducted people as old as 80 years, as old as 12 years, and killed them. Hamas is the terrorist here. But why? Because they are saying their terrorism is justified. Because they are saying they've been attacked for the last 70 years and the world hasn't lifted a finger. And the world has sided with Israel. Now, Hamas, people who lost their fathers and mothers and sisters thanks to IDF attack. They are willing to kill everyone. I've seen videos where Hamas is burning alive Israel soldiers. I have videos where Hamas is burning alive soldiers from Israel. Now, that is insane. You have two sides of insane people. One side is led by Benjamin Netanyahu, an insane man, very mad, very mentally unstable. And another side is led by Hamas. For them, they are willing to draw blood. They are willing to die and make Jannah and make heaven. Dennis, thank you so much for the show. And please, as we wind up, Dennis, please play those videos, those images once again, as I say bye-bye for this show. And I promise you, I'll come back with a better show where I'm going to give you the history of Israel from the time it was created to the time it was destroyed. I'll give you that history. As of now, I want to say thank you so much, Dennis. Those are photos of people all over the world who are saying, stop the bombing of innocent people in Gaza. Stop killing women, children, invalids, weak, sick, old people in Gaza. The people are innocent. Do not do collective punishment. Stop taking over the land of Palestinians in West Bank and in Gaza. This is what the world is saying, that we know their history. We know your history. We know you have a probable cause. We know you have a small piece of land, but please, can you live in peace? Please, can you live in peace? Can you coexist? People like Albert Einstein have said, stop the war. People like Noam Chomsky have said, stop the war. These are great people with the history of Israel. And they are saying, you are not doing this in our name. Many notable, strong people from Israel, intellectuals from Israel, are saying, stop killing innocent Palestinians. Now, as a TV, this is what we are calling for. We are calling for peace. We want to say, stop killing each other. We are saying, exchange prisoners. We are saying, respect boundaries. And we are saying, respect human rights. The killing of innocent people on both sides will not bring peace to Israel. The killing of innocent people on all sides will not bring peace in Israel, will not bring peace in Palestine. I tell you that we are going to continue to see bloodshed in Israel for a long time. The solution is sit down and find a way of sharing this territory. Sit down and find a way of sharing this holy place called Temple Mount, called Jerusalem, called Mount Olive, these holy places called Tabernacle, called the Wedding Wall. Please find a formula to share these places. Find a formula to live in peace. Otherwise, you will not see peace in Israel. As I've been saying, we've been seeing bloodshed from time immemorial. There have been bloodshed for thousands of years. Israelites have been living in captivity. They have been oppressed by the Ottomans, oppressed by the Romans, oppressed by Assyrians, oppressed by the Babylonians, oppressed by the Cushites. Everyone has been oppressing the Israelites. But we are saying no to revenge. We are saying Israelites are peaceful people. They are people of their God. They are people of their book. And they should live in peace. We are saying no to politicians like Benjamin Netanyahu, to politicians in Hamas who are promoting hate, because hate will not solve the problems in Israel. And as I promised, I'll be coming back with a show where I'll be telling you the history of the violence of Israel, which I will trace 1,000 years ago. And I will tell you who was destroying Israel and how they are fighting back. And then I will forge a way forward for Zionism and why we must have it a better way. Dennis, thank you so much for the show. Thank you so much for showing everything in time. And thank you so much, the viewers, for being part of this TV. We encourage you to watch the shows. We encourage you to share. We encourage you to take the word wide and far. This is Humanist TV Africa. I am Kato Mukasa on behalf of the entire crew and the production team. We are saying stay well, stay safe, stay very positive about life, and please say no to war. See you in the next one.